According to General Hospital spoilers for Wednesday, July 30th, Nina Reeves will be prepared to make a bargain with the devil, while Michael Corinthos will reject Drew Kane's plea. Willow Tate will also understand she made a tremendous mistake, so let's go over what's in store. Laura Collins will first receive family updates from Lulu Spencer, who will most likely express her concerns about Rocco Falconeri seeking out and bonding with Liesl Obrecht. Lulu will be determined to keep Rocco as far away from Obrecht as possible, but Laura will presumably believe it is a bad idea. The more Lulu attempts to prevent Rocco from obtaining answers, the farther she will push him away. Kai Taylor will accept full responsibility for damaging his relationship with Trina Robinson. Kai may open up to Jocelyn Jacks about this, and Joss may question if he still has a chance to win Trina back. Trina will meet Curtis Ashford on Wednesday's GH episode. Curtis will have some news to offer, so he may update Trina on the latest Drew turmoil, and hope that things will change for Portia Robinson. Next, Drew will persuade Michael to speak with him. Drew appears to be pleading on Willow's behalf, attempting to persuade Michael to allow Willow some visitation with her children. "I just don't feel like I can take that risk right now," Michael says in Wednesday's preview video. Michael is especially cautious and protective of his children after Willow's dramatic outburst and almost inappropriate behavior in front of Wiley Corinthos. Willow will come to a sad revelation at Elizabeth Baldwin's home. Willow will come to her senses and realize that going to Carly's place last night was a major mistake. Willow will be concerned that she has caused a huge obstacle in her plans to visit Wiley and Amelia Corinthos, so she will rely on Liz as she deals with her actions. Nina will tell Rick Lansing that she is willing to make a bargain with the devil if it means helping her daughter. Nina is poised to make a hidden move, while Rick is going to gain a new customer. Will they collaborate on a devious strategy of some kind? According to General Hospital spoilers, Nina will try anything to restore Willow's happiness, so stay tuned. General Hospital spoilers for Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. Fans may anticipate Willow Tate to deal with the consequences of her decisions. Nina Reeves and Rick Lansing struck an agreement. Plus, Kai Taylor confesses to Jocelyn Jacks. Continue reading, and let's discuss what's coming up in the next episode of the ABC soap opera. Willow Tate's aftermath. Let's begin with Willow, who spent the night at Elizabeth Baldwin's home. The nurse administered medicine to assist the shell-shocked bride relax and sleep. Willow will feel regretful after waking up. The young woman returns downstairs the following morning and informs Liz that she made a terrible mistake by going to Carly Spencer's residence. Michael Corinthos' big decision across town. Michael Corinthos will face a major decision. The father removed Willow before Wiley Corinthos became enraged. Michael told Carly that he would adhere to the judge's decision. However, he also expressed concern for Willow, saying he had never seen her in that condition before. "So, I'm wondering if Michael is persuaded to let Willow see her children." Nina Reeves and Rick Lansing's deal. General Hospital spoilers for Wednesday, July 30th predict Nina will make a secret move. A preview clip shows Nina meeting with Rick. The blonde proclaims that she is willing to make a deal with the devil if it benefits her daughter. It appears that they have reached an agreement, as Rick has been assigned a new customer. Meanwhile, Michael informs Drew Kane that he cannot take the risk right now. Could Drew be trying to entice Willow back by striking a bargain for the kids? The congressman must be mad if he believes Michael will reach any compromise, particularly with the children. On Wednesday, July 30th, 2025, fans will watch Curtis Ashford provide an update to Trina Robinson. Meanwhile, Kai Taylor informs Jocelyn Jacks that he is solely responsible for Trina's broken heart. Laura Collins gives an important warning. The mayor informs Lulu Spencer that she is making a terrible mistake. Could this be Rocco Falconeri's connection with Liesl Obrecht? Nina couldn't stop reliving the exchange in her mind. It was intended to be straightforward, a business proposition wrapped in a ribbon of compromise, but nothing in Port Charles stays simple for long. She assured herself it wasn't betrayal exactly. It was a bargain, a trade, one favor to another. She saw it as protecting her family, even though the family in question no longer wanted her around. She was tired of being an outcast, tired of sitting on the sidelines while Michael, Carly, and even Drew made decisions that touched everyone's lives but hers. So when the opportunity occurred to tip the scales, she seized it. The devil she made the bargain with wasn't actual, but symbolically, he fit the bill. a smooth-talking corporate raider with a vendetta against Drew Kane. Someone with just enough dirt to make even Nina nervous. But he did offer her a seat at the table as leverage. All she had to do was pass over some documents, make a few introductions, and remain silent as Drew's reputation dwindled. In exchange, she'd have the opportunity to reclaim what she'd lost. Time with Willow, the possibility of influence at Crimson, and perhaps even Sunny's fragile trust. But Nina had not anticipated the fallout. She had not anticipated Michael's rage or Willow's weeping. When Michael learned of her role in Drew's most recent business disaster, a botched transaction that appeared to be fraud, he cornered her in Metro Court like a man about to erupt. His words were icy cold, sharper than any slap she'd ever felt. "I knew you'd sink low, Nina," Michael replied, his voice quiet but deadly. "But going after Drew? After all Willow has done to offer you a second chance?" She wanted to protest. To explain. To pretend it wasn't her idea, that she was deceived, and that she had no idea it would descend so swiftly. But none of this mattered. Michael didn't want any excuses. He desired accountability, and Nina had none to provide. Willow stood right behind Michael, her face pallid and unreadable. She didn't say anything during or after the confrontation. She walked away quietly, and her silence shouted volumes. That marked the beginning of the breakdown. Drew, meanwhile, was left with the bag. His corporate empire was on the verge of collapse after critical data were leaked, implying that he had intentionally misled investors. He had fought tooth and nail to keep his company ethical, particularly following his prison sentence. But whispers spread that he'd never truly left that life behind. The SEC began to investigate again, and his name, once associated with second chances, was quickly becoming a liability. Drew was desperate and appealed to Michael. He assumed their alliance, formed over months of collaboration and commitment, was intact. But he hadn't anticipated Michael's developing distrust. Since Jason's return, Michael had become more guarded and skeptical of everyone who had once been in Sunny's inner circle. That includes Drew. "I'm not going down with you," Michael told him bluntly. "You made your choice. And if one of those options was to trust Nina Reeves, you're more foolish than I anticipated." The rejection hurt not only professionally but also personally. Drew had been there for Michael during the SEC incident. He covered for him, took the fall, and served time. And now Michael was going away as if it didn't matter. Michael seemed colder today, reminding Drew uncomfortably of Sunny, a man who knew when to let people go without looking back. The most terrible aspect of the fallout came from Willow. She had spent so much time trying to see the good in everyone, mediating between factions, and believing in salvation. Her entire decision to reintegrate Nina into her life was predicated on the belief that forgiveness could heal. But now she felt cheated, manipulated, used. Willow tried to keep her emotions under control, particularly around the children. Wiley and Amelia didn't need to feel the schism that was spreading like a fault line across their family. But when she eventually sat alone in her bedroom and reflected on what had transpired, the tears flowed quickly. She had believed in Nina. She had advocated for her despite Michael's warnings not to. She believed that love had the power to reform anyone, just as it had healed her own heart after everything with Harmony, Chase, and cancer. But Nina was not prepared for salvation. Nina was still playing games and working with shadows. Worst of all, Willow believed she had failed her children. She introduced a woman into their lives who could not be trusted, and Michael now looked at her as if she were foolish. Perhaps she was. Perhaps her hope had blinded her to the reality. The problem wasn't simply letting Nina in. It was allowing her into her heart. Willow found herself isolated. Michael was pulling away out of disappointment rather than rage. He worked longer hours at the office in Aurora, attempting to repair the PR disaster caused by Drew's mess. When he got home, he was distracted, courteous, and distant. Their once solid marriage was starting to show cracks. Not treachery, but disappointment. Michael wants to regain control, and he began to believe that the only way to get it was to quit relying on others. Even Carly, who always rides to the rescue, was unusually quiet this time. She and Drew had become close, perhaps too close, and Nina's meddling had shown Drew's vulnerability to manipulation. Carly refused to accept it, but a part of her blamed herself. She hadn't noticed the symptoms. Or perhaps she had and simply ignored them. Whispers began in the peaceful halls of General Hospital, as well as in waiting rooms and elevators. Willow passed by, and the staff exchanged glances. Nina's name popped up again in gossip, invariably associated with the phrase, "that woman." Drew was no longer being considered for board seats. Even Sonny, who had previously defended Nina, began to question her actions. Sonny understood all too well what it meant to make agreements with devils. He had done it for decades. But Nina was meant to be different. That was the explanation he told himself, the reason he severed links with Carly, Ava, and even his own code. But if Nina was willing to give up Drew's stability and Willow's trust for a chance at redemption, perhaps she wasn't the woman he thought she was. The tension at Port Charles spread outward. Ava caught wind of it and smirked, knowing Nina had finally made a decision she couldn't back out of. Jocelyn saw Michael's shift in conduct and started looking into Drew's predicament on her own. Even Jason, who had maintained his distance, began to ask discreet questions. The trust foundation that held these families together was breaking down. But Nina was not done. She was still confident she could solve it. She attempted to contact Willow, sending her a handwritten letter and offering to meet. Willow opened the letter and tucked it in her nightstand without responding. Not because she was upset, but because she couldn't think of anything to say that wouldn't break both of them apart even more. In the weeks that followed, Michael doubled down. He moved his priorities from restoring Drew's reputation to gaining control of the corporation. He made quiet queries about replacing Drew as CEO if things got worse. He started meeting surreptitiously with Valentine, testing old alliances. The old Michael, who had always aspired to be the honorable Corinthos, was fading away, replaced by a colder strategist. Drew was left reeling. He couldn't fight both the court of public opinion and those who had once supported him. Nina's bargain had caused a domino effect, and he wasn't sure he had the strength to stop it. Carly attempted to rally around him, but it wasn't enough. He began to question whether he had a future in Port Charles at all. Nina stood in her penthouse watching the storm she had caused, wondering if it was worth it. She had sought access, control, the opportunity to establish she was not the evil. But in her attempt to obtain everything, she had lost the only people she still cared about. Willow sat alone in her bedroom, contemplating her error. The one she could not undo. The one who made her question all she previously knew about love, forgiveness, and family. It was a moment of reckoning for everyone. And it wasn't done yet. Willow could feel the ground shake beneath her feet. Everything she'd strived for, peace, family, and health, was unraveling, and the weight of it grew heavier with each passing day. She had tried to forgive, to establish something genuine and enduring after so much loss, but some scars refused to heal. The news about Nina's machinations, along with Michael's unusual quiet, had set off a chain reaction of fear and mistrust that she could no longer control. She didn't want to think that all she'd built with Michael could be crumbling. He'd been distant lately, not cold, just quieter and more calculated in his reactions. She used to be able to read him like an open book, but now he hides his feelings behind a calm facade that chills her. The most unsettling part was not knowing if it was about her or something greater that he was hiding. Meanwhile, Willow was troubled by decisions she'd taken under the guise of safety. Trusting Nina, even if only temporarily, has unexpected consequences. She had hoped for a middle ground, a way for Wiley and Amelia to have their grandmother while Willow maintained her moral boundaries. But Rick Lansing's unexpected reappearance in Port Charles, along with his strange link to Nina, changed everything. Rumors arose that Rick was guiding Nina behind the scenes, assisting her in challenging the Quartermain family on issues ranging from custody access to Crimson's legal rights. Rick has always been a skilled manipulator. Willow had only heard murmurs about his history, largely from Carly and Sonny, but even brief interactions with him made her skin crawl. The man was too nice, too prepared, and every time he talked, it felt like he was auditioning for a job he'd done 100 times before. Nina did not appear to care. Indeed, he appeared to have empowered her. There were discussions going on in the Metro Court, with plans that conveniently omitted Drew, Carly, and Michael. Willow began to notice unusual happenings about this period. Paperwork went missing, and messages from her hospital administrator didn't match what she had been told in person. Her doubts intensified, Not just about Nina's motives, but about her own fragility. She'd already been through so much, nearly dying from leukemia, completely trusting Michael, believing in a family that was now under threat. Her ability to remain strong was eroding, which worried her. Meanwhile, Michael drowned in a private storm. While he pretended everything was normal, taking Wiley to school, assisting Olivia at the Quartermain house, and attending ELQ meetings, his mind was preoccupied with a secret that may destroy everything. Sonny had sent one final message before disappearing into what appeared to be self-imposed exile. Michael felt uneasy about the collision, which had been termed deadly by the media. He had checked the surveillance footage, obtained records, and even spoken with Jason about irregularities. What he discovered bothered him more than Sonny's death, the possibility that someone engineered it. He was almost certain Nina was involved, but he didn't have any proof. Rick's involvement added an even darker aspect to the theory. Michael did not want to be the type of man who stalked his adversaries in the dark, as his father did. But, with his family threatened and Willow slipping away, he didn't see any other option. That's when he made the decision that changed everything. He met with his lawyer in secret and started the process of rebuilding his life. Not only did he begin quietly liquidating non-essential assets, but he also did so legally. Wiley and Amelia are both in custody. Power of attorney, guardianship clauses, everything that would allow him to go quickly if necessary. He didn't tell Willow yet. She was already vulnerable and stretched too thin. But deep down he feared a custody battle would break out, dividing the town. Nina realized something had changed. She watched Willow from a distance, observing the recurrence of her worried demeanor during cancer treatment. The young woman was exhausted, and tired people make mistakes. Nina took advantage of the situation. Rick, always one step ahead, encouraged her to push harder, file for shared visitation, portray Willow and Michael as emotionally unstable, and weaponize the tragedy they had experienced. Nina first resisted, still yearning for a relationship with her daughter, but her desperation made her vulnerable. Eventually she gave in. Their transaction was quiet but terrible. Nina would give Rick ownership of part of her Crimson Board shares, giving him a platform and legal leverage to pursue Michael. In exchange, Rick would organize a smear campaign, nothing illegal, but enough to make Willow reconsider her place in Michael's society. It started with anonymous tips to the hospital board. Allegations of tainted judgment, nepotism, and favoritism stem from her friendship with Michael. Then came the veiled threats. A social worker arriving under the pretense of a normal welfare check, but asking too many probing questions about Nina. Willow felt overwhelmed. She felt as if she was losing everything at once, her stability, calm, and even her clarity of mind. Fear of being observed crept into her daily routine. She began making mistakes at work, small ones at first but enough to get noticed. Her hands trembled before she administered the prescription. Her mind drifted during patient consultations. The hospital personnel began to notice, and she could sense their disapproval in the silence. Michael attempted to hide her from all of this, but his efforts just made her suspicious. He was holding back, avoiding eye contact in uncomfortable situations, and making decisions without her participation. It reminded her of when they first met, how he used to bear the weight of his anguish alone, sheltering everyone from the depths of his suffering. She recognized that expression, and it scared her more than any court case or hospital reprimand. At the same time, Michael was devising a strategy that could either save or destroy them. He had contacted Jason again, this time seeking strategy rather than protection. If Nina and Rick were in agreement legally and financially, Michael needed to think like his father. He needed allies, leverage, and a route out that didn't require subjecting Willow to more mental warfare. Jason warned him that once you start down this path, there is no turning back. Michael did not hesitate. If Sonny really died, and Nina had anything to do with it, justice would be served one way or another. The tension between Michael and Willow finally broke one night when Wiley overheard an altercation. Willow had asked Michael if he still trusted her and believed in their relationship. Michael had answered truthfully, but it stung more than any lie. "I trust you, but I don't trust the world around us," he'd stated earlier. That contrast rocked her to the core. It meant he was planning without her and fighting a war on their behalf in which she was not involved. She left the house that night and drove around aimlessly for several hours. Her phone buzzed frequently with Michael, Carly, and even Brooklyn attempting to check in, but she ignored all of them. For the first time in months, she let herself cry uncontrollably. Not for what was occurring, but for who they were becoming. Meanwhile, Rick completed a document that might end Willow's career. Nina was apprehensive, but he reminded her that love sometimes requires making the difficult decision, even if it appears to be betrayal. Nina signed off, her hands shaking. She thought about her daughter, the one she had lost and was still losing. Perhaps she convinced herself this was the only way to ensure a future for her grandkids. Back in Port Charles, Michael stood in his father's penthouse, silent, sad, and distraught. He